Okay, I need to get this off my chest because I'm literally shaking as I type this. I don't even know where to start, but I guess I should begin with the gift that made everything click into place. So this happened last week. My husband Mark and I have been married for 7 years now. We got together when I was 23 and he was 28. He's always been the thoughtful type. You know? Always remembered birthdays, anniversaries, random Tuesdays where he'd bring home flowers just because. Everyone always told me how lucky I was, and honestly, I believed them. My mom used to say she wished my dad was half as attentive as Mark. My friends would joke about how I'd won the husband lottery, and I ate it up. I really thought I had something special. But last Tuesday, he came home with another gift. A perfume, specifically this really expensive French perfume called Nuit de Jasmine. Beautiful bottle, gorgeous scent, probably cost him $200 easy. The bottle itself was a work of art. Dark purple glass with gold detailing, the kind of thing you display on your dresser because it's too pretty to hide in a drawer. I thanked him, kissed him, told him I loved it. And I did love it. The smell was incredible, sophisticated and sensual, and exactly the kind of thing that makes you feel expensive when you wear it. But then something weird happened. I was putting it on my dresser, next to all my other perfumes, and I just stopped, staring at my collection, and something in my brain just went, wait a minute. It was like one of those optical illusion pictures where once you see the hidden image, you can't unsee it. I had 4 other perfumes on that dresser. Every single one had been a gift from Mark over the years. Birthday gifts, anniversary gifts, random surprises. And as I looked at them, really looked at them, I noticed something I'd never consciously registered before. They were all jasmine-based. Every single. The Fancy Guerlain one from 3 years ago. The Nishit Alien brand from last Christmas. The Joe Malone from our 5th anniversary. Even the smaller bottle he'd picked up for me when he went to that business conference in Paris. All jasmine. Some were jasmine and rose, one was jasmine and sandalwood. But jasmine was the dominant note in every single bottle. Now, you might be thinking, so what? Maybe you just really like jasmine. But here's the thing. I don't. I mean, I don't dislike it. But it's never been my signature scent or anything. Before Mark, I used to wear citrusy light perfumes. Stuff that smelled like summer and orange blossoms and grapefruit. Fresh, bright scents that reminded me of sunshine. I'd never gravitated toward jasmine specifically. I remember my college roommate wore a jasmine perfume and I thought it was too heavy for my taste. But all of Mark's perfume gifts, jasmine. I sat down on the bed, and I don't know why, but my hands were starting to shake. This felt like when you're doing a jigsaw puzzle and suddenly one piece makes you see the whole picture differently. That moment where everything shifts and you realize you've been looking at it all wrong. I went to my closet. Mark bought me clothes semi-regularly. Nothing crazy, maybe 3 or 4 times a year he'd surprise me with a dress or a blouse or a nice sweater. Sweet, right? That's what I always thought. He'd come home with a shopping bag, all excited, saying he saw something and thought it would look perfect on me. I always felt so loved when he did that. Like he was thinking about me even when we weren't together. I started pulling out the clothes he'd bought me over the years. I laid them all out on the bed, piece by piece. There were maybe 15 pieces total. A couple of dresses, several blouses, a few sweaters, a really nice silk scarf, even a coat. My stomach dropped. Every single item was either burgundy, deep forest green, or cream-colored. Those 3 colors. Nothing else. No blues, no pinks, no reds, no yellows. Just burgundy, forest green, and cream. The burgundy dress he bought me for our anniversary last year. The forest green cashmere sweater from the Christmas before. The cream-colored silk blouse he surprised me with last spring. the burgundy and cream scarf. On and on and on. I stood there staring at this collection of clothes, and I felt like the room was tilting. Because here's what made it so creepy and his wife. I didn't wear those colors before Mark. I pulled out my old college photos from a box in the closet. There I was at 22, wearing navy blazers and gray slacks and light blue shirts. I was more of a navy and gray person. Professional colors. Boring maybe, but they worked for me. They felt like me. Safe, classic, appropriate for my entry-level marketing job. But over 7 years, piece by piece, my wardrobe had shifted. I looked at my closet now and realized that more than half my clothes were in these 3 specific colors. It had happened so gradually that I'd never noticed. Like a frog in boiling water, I'd been transformed degree by degree until I'd completely changed without even realizing it. My heart was pounding now. My hands were actually trembling as I went back to the bathroom and opened my makeup drawer. The lipsticks Mark had bought me over the years. I'd never really thought about it. But he'd probably bought me a dozen lipsticks. He'd see them at the department store or the duty-free shop at the airport and pick one up. "This would look gorgeous on you," he'd say. I always thought it was sweet that he paid attention to that stuff. Most men don't even notice makeup, right? But Mark always noticed. He'd compliment me when I wore certain shades, gently suggest I try something different if I picked out something myself. I lined them all up on the bathroom counter. They were all the same shade. Different brands, slightly different finishes, but the same deep berry wine color. Every single one. Macy, NARS, Tom Ford, Chanel, some drugstore brands mixed in. All the same color. I grabbed the lipsticks I bought myself over the years, the ones buried in the back of the drawer. Those were different. Pinks, nudes, coral shades. But I rarely wore those anymore. When I reached for lipstick in the morning, I always grabbed one of Mark's gifts. More expensive, and wearing them felt like carrying a piece of his love with me. Except now, it felt like something else entirely. I sat on the bathroom floor and I actually felt like I was going to throw up. The tiles were cold against my legs and I focused on that sensation, trying to ground myself because I felt like I was floating away from reality. Was I going crazy? Was I seeing patterns that weren't there? But no, this was documented. I could literally see the evidence in front of me. 15 articles of clothing in 3 specific colors. 5 perfumes all based on the same flower. 12 lipsticks in the same shade. That's not random. That's not coincidence. That's intention. I pulled out my phone and started going through photos. Years of photos. Birthdays, anniversaries, random date nights, holidays with family. Girls' nights out, work events. I zoomed in on myself in these pictures, looking at what I was wearing, what I looked like. In the early photos, from when we first started dating, I looked like me. The me I remembered being. Navy dress at our second date at that Italian restaurant. Gray blazer at his company holiday party that first December. Peach lipstick in most of the photos. I realized I'd been getting highlights back then, keeping my naturally dark brown hair a bit unkissed. Fresh perfume probably, though you can't tell from photos. But I could remember. I could remember wearing that citrus perfume my mom had bought me for graduation. But as the years progressed, photo by photo, I watched myself transform. Then more burgundy. Forest green showing up in the Christmas photos from year 2. Cream-colored tops in the spring photos from year 3. The lipstick getting darker. My hair getting darker too, I realized. When had I stopped getting highlights? I couldn't even remember. Had that been my choice? By our 5th anniversary photo, I was wearing a burgundy dress, dark berry lipstick. My hair dark and styled in loose waves. I looked elegant, sophisticated, expensive, but I didn't look like me. Or at least I didn't look like the me I used to be. My whole aesthetic had shifted into something that, now that I was really looking at it, felt almost costume-like. Like I was playing a character, a very specific character. Who was I dressing as? That question hit me like a freight train, and suddenly I couldn't breathe properly. I got up off the bathroom floor and went to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water with shaking hands. The water spilled over the rim because I couldn't hold the glass steady. I looked at the most recent photos again. The woman in those pictures looked elegant, put together, sophisticated. She looked like the kind of woman who shops at expensive boutiques and gets regular blowouts and knows about wine pairings. She looked confident, unpolished, and like she had her life together. But she didn't look like the woman in the early photos. She didn't look like me. Or did she? Was I still me? How much of this change was natural evolution and how much was something else? My hands were trembling so hard I almost dropped my phone. I needed to know if I was losing my mind. I needed an outside perspective. I called my best friend Sarah. "Hey," she answered, all chipper. I could hear music in the background. She was probably at the gym. "What's up, babe?" "Sarah," I said, and my voice came out weird and strained, almost like I was about to cry. "Can I ask you something weird?" The music in the background cut off immediately. "Always." "You sound freaked out." "Do you think my style has changed since I got married?" There was a pause. "I mean, yeah. Everyone's style evolves, though. We're not in our 20s anymore." "Why? What's going on? How has it changed, specifically?" Another pause, longer this time. I could practically hear her thinking. "I don't know. You're just more sophisticated now, I guess. More put together. You used to dress kind of boring, no offense. Very corporate casual. Now you've got this whole classy vintage thing going on. The dark lipstick, those rich colors. It works for you, though. You always look amazing." "Vintage," I repeated. That word stuck in my brain like a splinter. "What do you mean by vintage?" "I don't know, just like old Hollywood glamour? Is that the right term?" "Very elegant. Like you stepped out of a classic movie or something. Grayscale vibes, maybe?" "Why are you asking this? You're kind of freaking me out a little. Has Mark ever mentioned anything about my clothes? About my style?" "Not that I remember. I mean, he compliments you all the time, but that's normal." "Emily, seriously, what's going on?" I noticed all his gifts follow a really specific pattern." "Like, really specific?" "Well, yeah, he has good taste. He knows what looks good on you. That's a good thing, right?" "Girl, most men couldn't pick out a dress to save their lives. You're lucky he pays attention." "Lucky?" Everyone kept saying I was lucky. "Does it seem weird to you that every single gift he's ever bought me fits into this really narrow aesthetic?" Sarah laughed a little. "I mean, consistency is good, right? Better than him having no clue what you like. Remember when my ex bought me that hideous neon pink purse? I'd take someone with consistent taste over that any day." We talked for a few more minutes, but I could tell Sarah thought I was being paranoid. Maybe I was. After I hung up with her, I felt even more confused. Was this normal? Did husbands just naturally influence their wives' styles? My mom always wore the colors my dad liked. Was that the same thing? Or was this different? But something felt wrong. Something felt really, really wrong in a way I couldn't articulate. I waited until Mark got home from work. He came in around 6:30, loosened his tie, set his briefcase down. Normal Tuesday evening. He kissed me hello, asked what I was making for dinner, told me about some boring meeting at work. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice casual while I stirred pasta sauce on the stove. "Why do you always buy me jasmine perfume?" He looked surprised, pausing as he poured himself a glass of wine. "Do I? I don't know. I just thought you liked it. You wear it all the time." He shrugged, smiling that easy smile of his. Maybe I helped you discover your signature scent. Right? And the clothes. Burgundy, green, cream. That's very specific. Now he looked a little uncomfortable, his smile faltering slightly. I just think those colors look beautiful on you. They complement your complexion. Why? Don't you like them? I can return the perfume if you want something different. No, I do like them, it's a very specific aesthetic. Did you plan that? He laughed, but it sounded forced. Plan it? I just buy you things I think you'll look good in. I'm not some evil mastermind with a grand plan for your wardrobe. You're acting weird. What's really going on? Nothing. Is this about money? Are you upset I spent too much on the perfume? Because I wanted to treat you, you work so hardened. It's not about money. Then what? I don't know. Forget I said anything. He came over, unwrapped his arms around me from behind while I stood at the stove. You've always had great style. He murmured into my hair. I just like helping you show it off. Is that so wrong? Then he kissed my forehead and went to change out of his work clothes. I stood in the kitchen, feeling insane. He made it sound so normal, so reasonable, so loving. Maybe I was being paranoid. Maybe I was looking for problems where there weren't any. But I couldn't shake the feeling. That night, I couldn't sleep. Mark was snoring softly beside me, completely peaceful, while I was staring at the ceiling with my brain going in circles. Around 2 a.m, I gave up on sleep and got up. I told myself I was just going to get some water, maybe scroll through my phone until I felt tired. But instead, I went to the living room. I opened my laptop. I don't even know what I was looking for at first. I typed in husband changes wife style and got a bunch of fashion blogs and articles about how partners influence each other's taste. Nothing useful. I tried husband-specific gifts pattern and got shopping guides and gift suggestion articles. Then I saw Mark's laptop on the coffee table. He usually took it to work, but he'd left it home today because he'd been having issues with it and had taken his tablet instead, planning to bring the laptop to IE tomorrow. I shouldn't have done what I did next. I know that. It was a violation of privacy. It was crossing a line. But my hands moved before my brain could stop them. That feeling of wrongness had grown into something I couldn't ignore. I opened his laptop. He didn't have a password for the home screen, which had always seemed like a sign of trust in our marriage. We didn't keep secrets, didn't lock our devices from each other. Now that openness felt ominous, like maybe he just never thought I'd go looking. I opened his browser. At first, I wasn't sure what I was looking for. I checked his history. The most recent stuff was just normal. Work emails, news sites, sports scores, some YouTube videos about golf. Boring, normal husband stuff. But then I started scrolling back further. Days, weeks, months. And I found it. My blood turned to ice. There was a Facebook profile that he'd visited. Not just once. Not just a few times. Dozens of times. Maybe hundreds of times over the past several years. The visits went back to before we were even married. I realized as I scrolled through the history. The profile belonged to a woman named Caroline Mitchell. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely control the mouse. But I clicked on the profile. The page loaded. She was beautiful. Dark hair like mine, probably close to the same length mine was now. Similar build, similar height based on the full body photos. Probably around my age, maybe early 30s. But that's where the similarities ended in terms of how we naturally looked. Because Caroline's style was exactly what I'd been transformed into. In every single photo on her page, going back years, she wore deep burgundy, forest green, or cream. Those exact colors. In her profile picture, she wore a burgundy dress with cream accessories. In her cover photo, she stood in a forest green coat, Scrolling through her timeline, more burgundy, more green. It was clearly her signature look, her personal aesthetic. Her lipstick in the close-up photos was that same deep berry wine. And in one photo, a close-up selfie from maybe 6 months ago, I could see her bathroom counter in the background. There was a perfume bottle clearly visible on the marble surface. I zoomed in on the photo until it was grainy. Nude de Jasmine. The same perfume Mark had just bought me last week. I sat there in the dark, in my living room, at 3 in the morning, staring at this stranger's photos, and I felt like I was watching my life from outside my body. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be happening. But it was. This woman existed. She was real, and my husband had been systematically dressing me to look like her for 7 years. I clicked on Caroline's info. She lived in Seattle. We lived in Portland. Close, but not the same city. Different enough that I'd never randomly run into her, but close enough that Mark could have easily known her before he moved here. I scrolled through her photos with a growing sense of horror. There were pictures going back years. 10 years, 12 years. In the older ones from maybe 10 or 11 years ago. There was a guy in some of them. Tall, dark hair, nice smile, athletic build. It took me a minute to recognize him because he looked younger, his face less lined, his hair a bit different. It was Mark, my husband. In photos with this woman. Tagged in some of them. Caroline and Mark at Pike Place Market. Caroline and Mark hiking Mount Rainier. Caroline and Mark's weekend getaway to the coast. They dated. Obviously. That made sense. People have exes, I had exes. Mark having a past wasn't the issue. But the photos stopped about 8 years ago. Right before Mark and I met. The last photo with Mark in it was dated 8 years and 2 months ago. I went back to the browser history. Mark had looked at her profile last week. Tuesday, actually. The day before he bought me the perfume. And the week before that. And the week before that. Going back months. Years. He was checking her Facebook constantly. Multiple times a week, sometimes multiple times a day. For 8 years. For our entire relationship. I felt sick. I actually ran to the bathroom and threw up. My body rejecting this information on a physical level. When I came back, I made myself keep looking. I needed to understand. I needed to see the full picture. I found more. So much more than I was prepared for. There was an Instagram account he followed from a burner account. Not his main one. The username was just random letters and numbers. No profile picture. But it followed exactly one account, Caroline's Instagram. He'd liked photos on this account. Not recently. The burner account hadn't been active in years. But the follows were still there. Dozens of likes on Caroline's photos from 6, 7, 8 years ago. I found an old email account I didn't know he had. It was still synced to the laptop, probably forgotten. The inbox went back years. Most of it was spam now, but buried in their worry mails between Mark and Caroline. Hundreds of them. The most recent ones were from 8 years ago, right around when Mark and I started dating. I opened the last email thread between them. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. The emails painted a picture I wasn't prepared for. From Caroline, dated 8 years and 3 months ago. Mark. Please stop calling me. We've been over this 1,000 times. I don't love you the way you love me. I never did. I'm sorry if I gave you the wrong impression, but I was clear from the beginning that I wasn't looking for anything serious. I'm sorry, but you need to move on. This isn't healthy. From Mark, same day. You don't understand. We're perfect together. I can be exactly what you need. I've changed. I'm not the same guy I was when we first met. Just give me one more chance. Please. Let me prove it to you. From Caroline. Next day. No, Mark. I've been clear about this for 2 years now. We dated for 6 months. 6 months. And it's been TWOYERS since then. You need to let this go. I've tried to be nice, I've tried to be patient. But this is getting scary. You call me constantly. You show up at my work. You message my friends asking about me. This has to stop. From Mark. I'm just trying to show you how much you mean to me. How is that scary? From Caroline, because I've told you no 100 times and you won't listen. I'm blocking your number. Please don't contact me again. If you keep this up, I'll have no choice but to get a restraining order. From Mark, you'll see. You'll realize I'm right. I know you better than anyone. I know what you need, what you like, who you really are. Someday you'll understand that we're meant to be together. That was the last email in the thread. 2 months later, according to his Facebook searches, he'd started looking at her profile again regularly, and he'd never stopped. And 1 month after that final email exchange, according to our own relationship timeline, Mark had met me. I sat there until the sun came up, going through everything. The picture was becoming clear, and it was so much worse than I'd imagined in those first moments of discovery. Mark had been obsessed with Caroline. They dated for 6 months, but when she tried to end it, he couldn't let go. He'd spent 2 years after their breakup pursuing her, calling her, showing up at her work, essentially stalking her until she'd threatened legal action. She'd finally cut him off completely, and then he'd found me. I pulled up my own Facebook photos from back then, from 8 years ago when Mark and I first met. The early ones from our first few dates, our first few months together. I looked different from Caroline, completely different. Different style, different vibe, different energy, different everything. I was corporate casual, boring navy and gray. She was elegant, unsophisticated in her burgundies and greens. But over the years, looking at the progression of photos, Mark had carefully, methodically, gift by gift, compliment by compliment, suggestion by suggestion, molded me into her. The perfume she wore, the colors she loved, the lipstick shade she always had on in photos. Even my hairstyle, I realized with growing horror. In recent photos, I wore my hair in loose waves, parted on the side, just like Caroline wore hers in every photo. When had I started styling my hair that way? I used to wear it straight, pulled back in a low ponytail for work. But at some point, I'd started curling it, wearing it down in those waves. Had Mark suggested that? I couldn't remember. It felt like my choice, but now I wasn't sure. I looked at a photo from last month from our anniversary dinner. Mark had bought me a new dress for the occasion. Burgundy, of course. Elegant, expensive. With my hair in those waves, my berry lipstick, my jasmine perfume floating around me like a cloud. I looked exactly like Caroline. I'd become her, not just similar to her, not just coincidentally sharing her aesthetic. I had been transformed into a replica of the woman my husband was obsessed with, the woman who'd rejected him, the woman who'd gotten away. When Mark woke up that morning, I was sitting at the kitchen table with my coffee, still in my pajamas. I hadn't slept at all. I'd spent the entire night going through his laptop, finding more and more evidence of his obsession. "Morning," he said, coming into the kitchen. He looked well rested, peaceful. He kissed the top of my head like everything was normal. "You're up early. Couldn't sleep? Who's Caroline Mitchell?" I asked. I watched his face. Watched the color drain out of it like someone had pulled a plug. Watched his eyes go wide and then narrow. Watched him calculate his next move. The pause lasted maybe 3 seconds, but it felt like an eternity. "She's an old friend," he said finally. "Why? Where did you hear that name?" "You visited her Facebook profile 42 times last month." Another pause. Longer this time. "You went through my laptop." His voice was quiet, dangerous. Not angry yet, but heading there. "You went through my private things?" "You've been dressing me to look like your ex-girlfriend for 7 years. That's not." But his face said otherwise. His face said I'd hit the target dead center. The perfume, Mark. The exact same perfume she wears. The colors. The exact same 3 colors she wears in every photo. The exact same shade. The hairstyle. Everything. I look like her. You made me look like her. He sat down across from me, heavily, like his legs had given out. His hands were shaking as he set them on the table. Okay, he said finally. Yes. Caroline and I dated. It was a long time ago. And yes, maybe subconsciously, I've been drawn to certain aesthetics because they remind me of a time in my life when I was happy. But that doesn't mean you check her Facebook multiple times a week. You've been doing it for 8 years, our entire relationship. I wonder how she's doing sometimes. That's normal. Everyone checks up on their exes on social media. Everyone does that. Not like this. Not for 8 years. Not multiple times a week. And not while systematically turning their wife into a replica of that ex. You're making this sound so sinister. I bought you gifts I thought you'd like. Gifts that would make you look beautiful. That's it. That's all it was. Did you ever love me? The question came out before I could stop it. Or did you just love that I could be shaped into her? That question hung in the air between us. The kitchen was so quiet. I could hear the refrigerator humming, the clock on the wall ticking. Of course I love you, he said. But his voice was flat. Emotionals is. You love the version of me that you created. The one that looks like Caroline. The one that wears her perfume and her colors and her lipstick and her hairstyle. You love your fantasy. Your replacement for the woman who got away. He didn't deny it. He just sat there, staring at his hands on the table. I need you to leave, I said. My voice was surprisingly steady. I need you to pack a bag and go stay somewhere else while I figure this out. This is my house too. Then I'll leave. But I can't be around you right now. I can't even look at you. You're overreacting. We can talk about this like adults. You turned me into someone else. You spent 7 years molding me into the image of your ex-girlfriend who rejected you. That's not something we can just talk through over coffee. My voice had risen to a shout by the end. Mark flinched. Fine, he said. I'll go. But you're wrong about this. You're wrong about all of it. He left. He packed a bag and left. And I sat in our house, surrounded by all these gifts, all these carefully curated pieces of someone else's identity that I'd been wearing like a costume for 7 years. I went to the bathroom and looked at myself in the mirror. Really looked, maybe for the first time in years, with the dark lipstick, the waves in my hair, wearing one of the burgundy tops Mark had bought me. I looked exactly like her. I looked so much like Caroline Mitchell that if someone had shown me our photos side by side, they might think we were sisters. I took off all my makeup, scrubbed my face until it was red. I pulled my hair back into a tight ponytail. I changed into an Old Navy t-shirt I'd had since before Mark, one of the few things that had survived his gradual wardrobe takeover. I looked more like myself, like the old me. But after 7 years, I wasn't even sure who that was anymore. Over the next few days, I did more digging. I couldn't help myself. I needed to understand the full scope of this. I needed to know everything. I found Caroline on LinkedIn. She worked for a major tech company in Seattle. Senior marketing director. Successful, by the looks of it. Her profile picture showed her smiling, confident, happy. Living her life completely unaware that some woman in Portland had been turned into her doppelganger. I did something crazy. Something I probably shouldn't have done. But I needed to talk to her. I needed to understand what had happened between her and Mark. I messaged her on LinkedIn since her Facebook seemed more locked down. Hi Caroline. This is going to sound extremely strange, and I apologize in advance for the intrusion. My name is Emily Davis and I'm married to Mark Thompson. I believe he's your ex-boyfriend from several years ago. I really need to talk to you about something important. Would you be willing to call me? This isn't a prank, I promise. Something very concerning has come to my attention and I think you might be able to help me understand it. I included my number in its end before I could second guess myself. I didn't expect a response. Why would she respond to a random message from her ex's wife? But she called me 2 hours later. I honestly almost deleted your message, she said when I answered. Her voice was kind, concerned, with a slight nervousness underneath. But something about it felt urgent. What's going on? Is Mark okay? I mean, not that I really care, but what's this about? Mark's fine. I mean, I don't even know how to explain this without sounding completely insane. Try me. I've heard a lot of insane things in my life, so I told her. Everything. The gifts, the specific colors and scents and styles, the pattern I'd discovered, the Facebook's talking I'd found in his browser history, the emails from 8 years ago, the way he gradually transformed me over 7 years. There was a long silence when I finished. So long that I thought maybe the call had dropped. Oh my God, she said finally. Her voice was barely a whisper. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. So sorry. You knew he was obsessed with you? I knew he had trouble letting go after we broke up. That's actually an understatement. It was honestly terrifying for a while there. We only dated for 6 months, and honestly, I should have ended it sooner. He was sweet at first, really attentive and romantic. But then it became intense. He wanted to know where I was all the time, what I was doing, who I was with. He'd get upset if I wore different clothes than he expected or changed my perfume. It felt suffocating. My stomach clenched. What do you mean, if you changed your perfume? He bought me this specific perfume early on in our relationship. Second date, actually. Really expensive, this beautiful bottle. I wore it because it was a gift and I didn't want to be rude, you know. But then later, maybe 3 months in, I tried to switch to something else. Something lighter for summer. And he got really upset. Like, genuinely upset. Said I smelled wrong. Said he liked me better with the other perfume. It was weird and controlling, but I convinced myself it was just his preference and it wasn't a big deal. New Jasmine? Yes. She sounded shocked that I knew. That was it. How did you? He's been buying me the same perfume. For years. 5 bottles. Another long silence. Emily, I need to tell you something. After we broke up, he called me constantly. Multiple times a day. Texted me hundreds of messages. Showed up at my work. At my gym. At my favorite coffee shop. Places he knew I'd be. He'd just be there, pretending it was a coincidence. But it kept happening. Over and over. For months. I had to threaten to get a restraining order. That's when he finally stopped the direct contact. But I'd still see him sometimes, like he was following me or just happening to be in my neighborhood. It was scary. That's partly why I moved to Seattle. I needed to get away from him. He moved to Portland right after you rejected him the final time. Did he? I didn't know that. I blocked him on everything and tried to forget he existed. Honestly, I thought he'd finally moved on. I hoped he had. Caroline, do you have any idea why he was so obsessed? What made it so intense? She sighed, a long exhale that sounded like she'd been holding it in for years. I've thought about this a lot. I even went to therapy for a while because the whole thing really messed me up. Made it hard to trust people to date. My therapist said that Mark doesn't fall in love with people as they are. He falls in love with ideas of people. He saw me, saw this aesthetic or lifestyle or whatever, and decided that was what he wanted. Like I was a character in a movie he wanted to direct. I was just the vessel for his fantasy. When I didn't play along perfectly, when I was my own preferences and boundaries, he couldn't handle it. He needed someone he could control. Someone he could shape into his perfect fantasy. someone who wouldn't fight back against his vision. And that became me. I whispered, I am so sorry. If I had known he'd do something like this, if I'd had any idea, I don't know what I would have done. But something. File that restraining order maybe. Make sure his future partners knew. Something. It's not your fault. I still feel terrible. This is God. This is like something out of a horror movie. After I hung up with Caroline, I sat in the dark for a long time just processing. Just trying to make sense of how my life had become this. Mark had been texting me constantly since he'd left 3 days ago. Apologizing, explaining, justifying. Let's talk about this rationally. You're blowing this out of proportion. I love you, we can work through this. Don't throw away 7 years over a misunderstanding. I hadn't responded to any of them. But that night, I finally wrote back. I talked to Caroline. She told me everything. About how you stalked her. About the perfume and the controlling behavior. About how she had to threaten legal action. About how she moved to a different city to get away from you. You didn't just casually date her and have trouble moving on. You were obsessed with her. And when you couldn't have her, when she refused to be your perfect fantasy woman, you found someone you could mold into her. Someone younger, less confident, more malleable. That someone was me. I was your second choice. Your chance to finally create the perfect version of Caroline Mitchell. He called immediately. I let it ring. He called again. And again. 7 times. Finally, on the 8th call, I answered. It's not like that, he said immediately, his words tumbling over each other. Caroline is exaggerating. She always was dramatic, always made everything bigger than it was. I never stalked her. I was just. She had to move to a different city, Mark. Because of her job, she got a promotion. Stop lying. I'm so done with the lies. Fine. Yes, I had a hard time getting over her. But that's normal after a breakup, especially when you really love someone. People struggle. People make mistakes. And yes, maybe I saw some qualities in you that reminded me of her. That so what? People have types. That's not a crime. That's not some sick obsession like you're making it sound. You didn't fall in love with me. You fell in love with your ability to turn me into her. That's not true. That's absolutely not true. I love you. I've always loved you. You're being unfair. Do you even know what color my eyes are? Silence. Do you? I pressed. What color are my eyes, Mark? The eyes you've supposedly been looking into with love for 7 years. Brown. They're brown. They're green, Mark. You've looked at me every day for 7 years and you don't even know what color my eyes are. Because you've never actually seen me. You've only seen your fantasy version of Caroline. That doesn't mean anything. Lots of people are bad with details like that. But you remember every detail about Caroline, don't you? Her perfume, her colors, her style, her hair. You remember everything about her, and nothing about me. Because you look like her now. You are like her now. That's what you've been trying to tell me, right? So I do know you. I know exactly how you look. The way he said it. Like he didn't even realize how insane it sounded. Made my blood run cold. I want a divorce, I said quietly. Don't be ridiculous. We can work through this. We can go to couples therapy or something. You're just upset. But you need serious psychological help. You need to see someone about this obsession, about your inability to see people as they actually are. And I need to be as far away from you as possible while you do that. You're my wife. I'm your dress-up doll. Your replacement for the woman who got away. Your second chance to create the perfect fantasy. But I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not being her anymore. You're overreacting. You're being hysterical. I'm being clear. For the first time in 7 years, I'm seeing clearly. I hung up. The next few weeks were a blur of lawyers and paperwork in dividing up our life. Mark alternated between apologizing and gaslighting, between promising to change and insisting I was overreacting, between love bombing and guilt tripping. Think of all the good times we had, he'd text. Don't you remember our honeymoon? Our trip to Italy? Don't throw that away. But I couldn't stop seeing it all through this new lens. Our honeymoon where he'd bought me a burgundy dress to wear to dinner. Our trip to Italy where he'd taken me shopping and steered me toward the cream-colored pieces. The good times that were actually just him successfully molding me without my knowledge. His family thought I was being dramatic. I made the mistake of trying to explain it to his mother once. All husbands buy their wives gifts, she said dismissively. You're throwing away a marriage over some perfume? Over him having good taste? My generation didn't divorce over such silly things. They didn't get it. Most people didn't get it. Even some of my friends struggled to understand. But did he actually hurt you? One friend asked. Like physically? He erased me. I tried to explain. He slowly erased who I was and replaced me with someone else. But you look great though. Like, objectively your style improved. That's what made it so insidious to outside observers. It looked like Mark was being a good husband. Thoughtful. Attentive. Helping me improve my style and confidence. How could I explain that improvement was actually destruction? That the confidence was in being someone else. But Sarah got it. When I showed her everything, all the evidence I'd compiled, she went pale. This is like that movie, she said. You know, where the creepy guy is obsessed with the dead woman and tries to remake someone into her. Vertigo, I said. Yeah. That's exactly what kept coming to my mind too. Except Caroline isn't dead. She's just living her life in Seattle completely unaware that she has a doppelganger in Portland created by her creepy ex. Are you safe? Like, is he dangerous? Should you get a restraining order? I don't think so. I mean, Caroline said he stalked her, but he never physically hurt her. I think he's more pathetic than dangerous. But I'm changing the locks anyway. And I told my boss in building security to not let him in. I moved out of the house before the divorce was finalized. A compliment, a subtle steering toward his vision. The bedroom where he'd given me jewelry, always in gold because that's what Caroline wore in her photos. The kitchen where he bought me a cream-colored apron that hung on a hook. The living room where that burgundy throw blanket he'd given me was draped over the couch. I rented a small apartment across town. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. Just mine. The first thing I did was go shopping. Really shopping, for the first time in years without thinking about what Mark would want me to wear. I bought bright colors. Blues and pinks and yellows and greens. But not that forest green. Bright spring green. Kelly green. I bought a red dress. Something Mark never would have chosen. I bought a white blouse with ruffles. Completely impractical, but I loved it. I bought a new perfume. I stood in the perfume section of the department store for an hour, smelling everything, trying to figure out what I actually liked. What scent felt like me, not like who I'd been turned into. I ended up with something citrusy and light. Grapefruit and bergamot and white tea. Like the perfume I used to wear in college. Like me. I got my hair cut shorter, chin length with some layers. More like I'd worn it in my early 20s. The hairdresser asked if I was sure multiple times because I was cutting off so much length. But I was sure. I watched those waves fall to the floor and felt lighter. I bought new makeup. Pink lipstick. Coral blush. Brown mascara instead of black. Soft colors that felt gentle instead of dramatic. Looking in the mirror after all of that felt like meeting an old friend I'd forgotten existed. There she was. Not Caroline. Not Mark's version of Caroline, just Emily. But here's the thing that still messes me up. Even now I'm not sure who I am anymore. For 7 years, I became someone else. And even though I'm trying to go back to who I was before, that person is gone too. She was 23. I'm 30 now. I've lived 7 years of life. I've had experiences and growth and changes that have nothing to do with Mark's manipulation. So who am I now? Am I the Emily from before? Am I some hybrid of both versions? Am I someone entirely new? I'm working on figuring that out in therapy. I found a therapist who specializes in psychological abuse and coercive control. Because that's what this was, she explained in our first session. What Mark did was a form of coercive control. He was grooming you, Dr. Reynolds explained, gradually shaping you to fit his ideal without you even realizing it was happening. It's insidious because each individual action seems benign. A gift, a compliment, a suggestion. But taken together over time, it's a systematic erasure of your identity and replacement with his fantasy. But I let it happen, I said. I wore the clothes. How is that his fault? Because you didn't have all the information. You didn't know about Caroline. You didn't know he was following a blueprint. You thought he was being a loving husband who happened to have consistent taste. That's how coercive control works. It makes the victim complicit in their own manipulation. She says it's going to take time to unpack all of this. Time to figure out who I am versus who I was told to be. Time to rebuild my sense of self. The divorce finalized last month. Mark showed up to the courthouse wearing the same cologne he'd worn when we first met. I'd never thought about it before, but I wondered in that moment if it was the cologne he wore when he dated Caroline. He looked at me like I was a stranger. I'd shown up in jeans and a blue sweater, my shorter hair pulled back, minimal makeup. I looked nothing like the woman he'd married. Nothing like Caroline. You look different, he said. It wasn't a compliment. I look like me. You looked better before. I looked like her before. There's a difference. Maybe I was. Maybe to him, I always had been. After the hearing, he stopped me in the parking lot. I almost kept walking, but something made me turn around. I just want to understand, he said. He looked genuinely confused, like this was all a mystery to him. What was so wrong about me wanting you to look beautiful? About me caring about how you presented yourself? About me wanting to help you be the best version of yourself? I looked at him, really looked at him, and I realized something sad and frightening. He still didn't get it. He probably never would. In his mind, he was the good guy, the attentive husband, the man with good taste who'd helped his plain wife become sophisticated and elegant. He couldn't see the manipulation, couldn't see the control, couldn't see how twisted it all was. The problem, I said slowly, carefully, is that you never wanted me to look like me. You never wanted me to be the best version of myself. You wanted me to look like someone else. You wanted me to be her. You never loved me, Mark. You loved the idea that you could create your perfect woman since you couldn't have the real one. You loved your ability to play God with someone else's identity. That's not true. It is true. And the saddest part is, you don't even see how messed up that is. You think you were being a good husband, but you weren't loving me. You were using me as a blank canvas to paint your obsession onto. You're twisting everything. I'm seeing clearly for the first time in 7 years. I walked away. He didn't follow me this time. A few weeks after the divorce finalized, I got a message on Facebook from a woman I didn't know. Her profile picture showed a young woman, maybe 25, with long blonde hair and a bright smile. Hi. This might seem random, but I saw you were recently divorced from Mark Thompson. I've been seeing him for about a month, and something weird just happened. He bought me perfume, really expensive French perfume, Nuit de Jasmine. And then yesterday he bought me this burgundy sweater even though I told him burgundy isn't really my color. Is that strange? Did he used to buy you specific things? I'm probably being paranoid, but something feels off and I noticed his ex-wife on his friends list, so I thought I'd ask. I looked at her profile more closely. Rachel Morrison, 25 years old, recent college grad, new to Portland for her first real job at a marketing firm. She didn't look anything like me or Caroline. Blonde hair, blue eyes, petite build, completely different. For now, I wrote back immediately. Yes, he bought me very specific gifts. Very, very specific. Can we meet? I think you need to hear the full story before you get in any deeper with him. We met for coffee the next day at a place downtown. She showed up looking nervous, clutching her purse like a lifeline. Thank you for meeting me, she said as we sat down. I feel crazy even reaching out. We've only been dating a month. But something just felt wrong. I told her everything, every detail. The perfume, the colors, the transformation, Caroline. The obsession, the stalking, all of it. I showed her photos of me from before and after. Showed her Caroline's Facebook profile. Showed her everything. She cried. Tears just streaming down her face as the reality sank in. Then she got angry. Pulled out her phone and blocked his number right there at the coffee shop. Deleted him from social media. Erased him. How many women has he done this to? She asked, her voice shaking. I don't know, but I think we should find out. That's what I'm doing now. Caroline agreed to help, despite the trauma it brings up for her. We've started reaching out, carefully, to other women Mark has dated. Women we can find mentioned in his old social media. Women Caroline remembered him mentioning. We've found for others so far. For women from before Caroline, going back over 15 years. All of them have similar stories. Jessica dated him for 8 months about 14 years ago. She said he became obsessed with how she dressed, would get upset if she wore certain colors. Specifically, he didn't like it when she wore red or black. Kept buying her earth tones. Browns and tans and creams. When she pushed back, he became controlling and possessive. She broke up with him and he called her for 6 months afterward. We found her Instagram. In all her photos from that time period, earth tones. Browns, tans. Lots of bold colors. I literally threw away everything he'd ever bought me, she told us on a video call. It felt contaminated. Amanda dated him for a year about 16 years ago. She said he had strong opinions about her makeup, her hair, everything. Wanted her to dress more classic. Bought her specific gifts that all followed a theme. Navy and white. Pearl earrings. When she tried to wear something different, he'd find a way to make her feel bad about it. He once told me I looked cheap in a red dress I'd bought myself, she said. So I stopped wearing anything he didn't approve of. Looking back, it was completely controlling. But at the time, I thought he just had strong aesthetic preferences. Megan dated him briefly about 12 years ago. Only 3 months. But it was intense. He came on really strong, she said. Love bombing, I think it's called now, constant gifts and attention. But the gifts were always so specific. This particular shade of pink. This style of dress. I felt like he was trying to turn me into someone. But I didn't know who. These weren't just quirks. This wasn't just a man with strong taste. This was a pattern of manipulation and control going back over 15 years. Here's what I think happened, Caroline said when we all got on a group video call. All 5 of Mark's ex-girlfriends plus Rachel, the one we'd saved before she got into deep. Mark has an idealized image of his perfect woman in his head. Maybe from a movie he saw, a book he read, some fantasy he created. But that woman doesn't exist. So he tries to create her. He finds women who are young enough, insecure enough, or naive enough to be molded. And then he shapes them, piece by piece, until they match his vision. But the vision changed, Amanda pointed out. I was supposed to be preppy and classic. You were supposed to be elegant and vintage. Emily was also elegant and vintage. What changed? Maybe his fantasy evolved, Jessica suggested. Or maybe he adjusts based on what he thinks he can achieve with each person. Or maybe, I said slowly, he's looking for one specific woman and keeps trying to recreate her. Caroline, you said the photos of your style go back years, right? To before you even met Mark? Yeah, I've always dressed this way. It's just my style. So Mark didn't create it. He found it. He found you and your aesthetic and became obsessed with it. And when he couldn't have you, he spent the next 8 years trying to recreate you with someone else. But what about the women before me? Caroline asked. If I'm his ultimate obsession, why was he trying to mold those other women into different aesthetics? We didn't have an answer for that. Not yet. We're still investigating. Still finding more pieces of the puzzle. Last week, we found something interesting. Through some Facebook deep diving, we found photos from Mark's college years. There was a girl in several of them, tagged in his photos. Sarah Chen. They appeared to be close, maybe dating, though it was hard to tell. I found Sarah on LinkedIn and reached out. She responded within a day. Oh my God. Mark Thompson, she said when we talked on the phone. I haven't thought about him in years. We dated freshman year of college, for like 3 months. Can I ask what happened? Why did you break up? He was sweet at first. But then he got really intense really fast. Wanted to spend all our time together. Got jealous if I hung out with friends. But the weirdest thing was how he wanted me to dress. He'd make comments about my clothes constantly. Said I'd look prettier in certain colors. Bought me clothes that I never would have picked for myself. I broke up with him because it felt suffocating. Do you remember what colors he wanted you to wear? God, this is so specific, but yeah, he was really into me wearing burgundy and green. Said they looked good with my skin tone. It was weird how specific he was about it. Burgundy and green. Caroline's colors. That was 18 years ago. Before he'd ever met Caroline. Sarah. I asked carefully, do you have any photos from back then? Of what you looked like? She sent me a few old photos from Facebook. College Sarah, 18 years old, smiling at parties and football games. She had dark hair, similar build to Caroline and me. And in the photos Mark was in, she wore burgundy and green. Did you dress like that before you met Mark? I asked. Actually, no. I was more of a jeans and t-shirt person. Pretty casual. But Mark kept buying me these nicer clothes and I wore them because, you know, they were gifts. And he seemed so happy when I wore them. So it went back even further. To college. To 18-year-old Sarah, who became Mark's first attempt at creating his perfect woman. We still don't know where the original obsession came from. Maybe a movie character. Maybe someone he saw once and fixated on. Maybe a family member. We're still digging. But what we do know is this Mark has been doing this for at least 18 years. Young women usually, and systematically transforming them into his fantasy. And when they push back or break free, he moves on to the next one and starts over. We're compiling everything into a document. All the stories, all the evidence, all the patterns. We're not sure what we'll do with it yet. Maybe nothing. Maybe we just need to understand for our own peace of mind and healing. Or maybe we'll make it public somehow. I warning to other women. I way to prevent him from doing this to someone else. Rachel, the woman we saved, suggested we create a website. Like those teacher review sites, but for dangerous men in relationships, she said. Somewhere women can look up someone they're dating and see if there are red flags. It's an interesting idea, though legally complicated. For now, we're just connecting, supporting each other, sharing our stories. There's something powerful about realizing you're not alone, that you're not crazy, that what happened to you happened to others too, and it wasn't your fault. Last week, I went on a date. Actually, I've been going on dates for a couple of months now, trying to get back out there. This one was with a guy named David who I met through a friend of a friend. He's a teacher, funny, kind, normal. At the end of the night, he walked me to my car. "I really liked you," he said. "I'd love to see you again. And hey, I really like your style. It's very you. Very authentic." I almost cried right there in the parking lot. "Thank you," I managed to say. "You have no idea what that means to me. Because that's what I'm working toward. Being myself. Authentically myself. I still have nightmares sometimes. Dreams where I look in the mirror and see Caroline's face staring back at me. Dreams where my closet is full of burgundy and green and cream, no matter how many times I throw those clothes away. Dreams where Mark is standing behind me, adjusting my hair, painting my lips, draping me in his preferred colors like I'm a mannequin. But I'm healing. Slowly. Day by day, I'm figuring out who Emily is when she's not being shaped by someone else's fantasy. I cut my hair even shorter last month. Pixie cut. I've never had hair this short in my life. Mark would have hated it, which is exactly why I did it. I joined a painting class. I'm terrible at it, but I don't care. I'm making art with colors I choose. Bright, chaotic, messy colors that don't match any aesthetic except my own. I'm planning a trip to Thailand with Sarah, just us. No man to approve my outfits or steer me toward certain restaurants or subtly control the itinerary. I'm building a life that's mine. And you know what? I don't know if I'll ever fully recover from what Mark did. Maybe that's not even the goal. Maybe the goal is just to move forward, carrying this knowledge but not letting it define me. Sarah from college, the first victim we could find, said something that stuck with me. "For years I thought I was crazy for thinking Mark was controlling," she said. "I thought I was overreacting. But now, connecting with all of you, seeing the pattern across decades, I realize I was right to trust my instincts. We were all right. And there's power in that validation. She's right. There is power in it. So that's my story. That's how I realized the pattern in my husband's gifts, and how that pattern revealed a truth that shattered my entire marriage and led me to discover a decades-long history of manipulation and control. If you're reading this and something resonates, if you're wondering whether your partner's gifts or compliments or suggestions might mean something darker, trust your instincts. Look at the patterns. Ask the questions. Talk to their exes if you can. Because the scariest part of my story isn't that Mark was obsessed with creating his perfect woman. It's that I didn't notice I was disappearing until I was almost completely gone. And I don't want that to happen to anyone else. The women Mark manipulated. We're starting a support group, meeting monthly, online and in person when possible, sharing resources, helping each other heal, warning other women when we can. Last month, a woman named Jennifer reached out. She'd been dating Mark for 3 weeks. He just bought her a bottle of Nuit de Jasmine. We told her everything. She broke up with him that day. That's one more woman who won't lose years of her life to Mark's fantasy. One more woman who gets to stay herself. And maybe that's how we fight back. Not with revenge, not with legal action that's hard to prove, but with information, with connection, with refusing to let him isolate and manipulate another victim. I don't know what Mark is doing now. If he's trying to understand why his relationships keep failing. If he's in therapy, I hope he is. I hope he gets help. Not for his sake, but for the sake of the next woman he meets. But I'm not waiting around to find out. I've spent enough time thinking about Mark Thompson and his obsessions. Now I'm focused on me. On Emily. On figuring out who that is and learning to love her, whatever form she takes. Because here's what I've learned: you are not required to be anyone's fantasy. You are not obligated to transform yourself to fit someone else's vision. You are not a canvas for someone else to paint their dreams onto. You are yourself. Messy, complicated, evolving, but always yourself. And that is enough. So take care of yourselves out there. Trust your instincts. Question the patterns. If someone truly loves you, they'll want you to look like yourself, act like yourself, be yourself. Not like their fantasy. Not like someone else. Not like a character they're directing in their personal movie. Just you. Always just you.